Welcome to CEO Sales Sessions. I'm Gazi, your host, former political staffer turned entrepreneur and founder of Sales Beyond Scripts, where I build CEOs whose sales feel effortless and profit becomes inevitable. I've spent years in the highest pressure rooms, both in politics and business, and I'm bringing you everything I learned straight to this mic. No fluff, no filler, just actionable steps, tough love, and big thinking alongside some of the sharpest CEOs in the game. Let's get to work. Welcome to another episode of CEO Sales Session with your host, Gazi. I'm so happy you're here. On this episode, I really want to do a deep dive to tell you a little bit about who I am and also my journey into entrepreneurship. A lot of you want to know the story. How did I go from working a 9-to-5 career to building my own thing? And what was that experience like? And so I'm going to consider this episode one of our foundational episodes together, where you get to know me, but also you get to set a goal for yourself. I spent years chasing a goal that wasn't even mine. And so what I'm about to share with you today, which I learned from my mentor, Bob Proctor, is going to be one of those foundational tools. So maybe you're a new client of mine and I've asked you to watch this podcast. Maybe we met at an event and you asked, what's the first step? And I guided you here. Or maybe you're just scrolling and you came across this episode. Either way, you're in the right spot. And maybe you're new to goal setting, or maybe you're not. It doesn't matter to me. Again, this is a foundational episode. So wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, this is an opportunity for you to come back to what I'm calling goal setting and the importance of this. And I'm not talking about your basic SMART goals or quarterly goals. I'm talking about foundational at a mindset level, how we think about goals. And I always give credit to my mentor, Bob Proctor. I learned this in one of the OG programs that I started studying. You could even find this on YouTube, but I'm going to break it down for you today. It's going to be a mix of me teaching the ABC type goal framework and also sharing my story in it, so you can see how I implemented this thinking when I learned about goal setting. So let's dive in. I would recommend that for this episode, you have a notebook or somewhere, whether it's your phone or with a pen and paper, that if any ideas or mic drop moments come to your mind, that you could just quickly capture that and write it down and, mark it for yourself, because it's really one of those deep, juicy episodes. So a little bit about my story. My whole life, I had been living in what was called a B-type goal. And if you want to know what a B-type goal is, and maybe some of you could relate to this, a B-type goal is something you know how to do, and it's kind of like that no-brainer goal. It's that societal goal that it's like, this is what a goal would be. And for a woman like me, when my parents immigrated to Canada 33 years ago, when they thought of what would the goal for their kids be, what came to their mind was kind of that, societal expectation of a B-type goal would be going to school, getting a career, working in, let's say, what my parents always thought were like lawyers, engineers, doctor, or failure, really. Like that's what they had kind of created as this goal, this corporate style vision that they had. And for many years, I thought, that sounds like the right goal for me. And so I spent a big chunk of my life not knowing anything other than this for myself. And so from the minute I went to school, I started working in politics. I started as a volunteer and then dove into this career. And for me, that's what a B-type goal was, okay? It was what I'm going to say, I'm air quoting if you're listening to this, like society standards of achieving success and what my parents thought achieving success was. So that was my B-type goal. And I identify it as like what you can do and what society kind of says is the definition of success, and whatever you learned and heard growing up as a kid. That's probably your version of a B-type goal. And as you're hearing this, it's coming to your mind what that B-type goal is, okay? This is where most people play. So 80% of people, if not more than that I meet are playing in this area, the B-type goal. It's like what they know they could do, and it's a little bit of a stretch, okay? Most humans, we set like 5% stretch goals, like small goals that you know you could do. And when people tell me their goal, I'm like, I know that you've got more potential. You can go way bigger than that. But most of us are conditioned to play in this arena of B-type goal. And it wasn't until 2020 that I even knew the difference between a B-type goal or a C-type goal. And I want to share with you, like, the first time I heard of a C-type goal, it felt so good to dream bigger, because for so many years I was stuck thinking in the B frame, which we identify as what you know you could do. So I love to give criteria. What is a C-type goal? So if you're writing these down, these are your noters. A C-type goal is something you've never done before. So if you've done this before, it's going to go in the B-type category. So I want you to think big. A C-type goal is something you've never done before. Another criteria, it has to really, really scare you. So it's almost like even in saying it, there's discomfort, there's doubt, there's fear. We want a bit of that, actually. It's a really, really good sign of a C-type goal. And also, it's like a simultaneous feeling. So it's like, as much as you're terrified, the excitement is also like overwhelming. Like, it takes over the body. Now, I remember when I studied this in the Thinking into Results program through Bob Proctor's program, I didn't even know what that could be, because I had been conditioned. I was 24 at that age. I had conditioned to solely think realistically. That's another one of the B-type goal that I want to mention too, is like, it's realistic. Like, you could be like, there's a trajectory, it's realistic, you would climb it in this certain way. Versus with the C-type goal, it has a bit of like, because it's big thinking, this, like, I'm going to air quote, like, I don't even want to say like unrealistic, because that's like not my language at all. That's small thinking. But at that time, it feels that way. Okay. So let me bring it back. So when I thought of the C-type goal or heard it for the first time, I actually didn't know how to think in this way. And I didn't know how to think in this way because I'd been so conditioned to think in the B way. Like, going to university, getting a 9-to-5 job, working at, some of the highest levels of Canadian politics, working for premiers, for prime ministers, I was conditioned to think about success in a very, very niched way. It looked like benefits, it looked like salary, it looked like status, it looked like power. That was my definition of it. And so when I heard about C-type goal, it's like, what would that even be? I can't even think about it. So if that's where you're at, and maybe you're like, no, I know what big thinking is, then that's perfect. And maybe you're like, I haven't even thought of that way before. That's perfect too. But know that what is a requirement for the C-type is that it is a stretch level goal. Some would call it a 10x goal, a stretch goal, a big audacious goal, whatever language is resonating with you. And that's why I'm always bringing my clients back to this framework to think 10x, to think next level. And so some of us set goals annually, some of us set them quarterly. Or as visionaries, as a CEO, you're constantly goal setting. You're constantly thinking, where am I taking the business? What is the next step? What is the next hire? What is the next strategic move? Where are we expanding to? What are we building? And so when I offer this framework to you, sure, it's something, maybe an activity you do with your team, or you sit down and you slot this thinking in CEO time. But it's also a framework of how I want you to constantly be thinking. Because if you're listening to this podcast, I bet you're not that 80% B-type goal type of person. You're probably listening to this podcast because you're like me and you have a big vision for yourself, and you're a CEO and you have a vision for your company, and you see yourself as someone who can build and scale something extraordinary beyond what the ordinary people are doing. And if that is you, then you want to be thinking in the C-type frame. Never done this before. No idea how. Scares the absolute shit out of me and excites me at the exact same time. Another key thing that I always invite my clients to think about when they're thinking about that C-type goal is like, if I were to ask you to achieve it today, you actually would have no idea how. You have no idea how. So if you have an idea on what that goal looks like, you're thinking way too small. You want to be thinking about a goal that feels impossible, so that if you're committing to achieving and realizing that goal, that it would require you to become a whole new version of yourself. We're going to talk about this in the next episode on self-image as well. And I'm calling these kind of like the foundational episodes. Because once you have your C-type goal, you then realize you have to become a version of yourself that you are not currently. You have to create a new identity and release old versions of yourself, past limiting beliefs, past identities that were passed on to you generationally, experientially, unconsciously, removing those layers of old version and allowing yourself to step into a new version. And I could tell you the version of Gazi that was that B-type goal versus the woman that I am today and how I show up and how I think about myself and how I think and feel and act completely different. And not completely different in the way it's like, I'm a new person. No, obviously not. I'm the same person, but I worked on myself. I truly worked on myself to ask myself, is this my full potential? Do I want to be a people pleaser and just do what society wants me to do and do what my parents want me to do for the rest of my life? Or do I want something more? And when I heard Bob Proctor talk about the C-type goal, it took my full attention. I was like, yes, I want this type of life. I want to think bigger for myself. I want to achieve what looks like is only available for a few, but I know is available for me as well. And this was my introduction to mindset work. I was a young woman. I'm so grateful that I got into deep subconscious mindset work and learning about the mind. And we're going to dive into this again in episode again and again and again, because yes, this is for business owners. And yes, we talk business strategy, but unless we're talking about the mindset stuff, like the goal setting and the self-image and the thoughts and the stuff behind creating the results, like none of it will work. And so again, I'm coming back to this idea of like foundational. This is the foundational work that we're doing together, where it's like setting in on what is that visionary C-type goal. And remember, I told you earlier in this episode that the first time I heard of that, I actually didn't know what it was. Because I was so blocked in thinking, it took a lot of quieting of the outside noise and really sitting with myself and journaling and traveling and spending time alone and sitting in meditation and asking myself the questions of, what's that C-type goal? What would I really want? If nothing was off limits for me, if anything was possible, what would I want? What would I desire? And so because that muscle was so weak, it took a lot of repetition for me to even think about what could a C-type goal be. And maybe you know what that C-type goal is. Perfect. Lock in. Lock in on the idea that I am going to achieve this stretch goal for myself. Even with my clients who are seasoned 6-7-figure entrepreneurs, even quarterly, I ask them to come back to this question. Even sometimes when we feel stuck and our vision is feeling clogged down, I'm like, what would you love? If nothing was off limits, what would the next 90 days look like? What would this quarter look like for the company? What's been on your heart that you would love to achieve? So my invitation to you is, from this episode, take some time, get out your notepad, go on a walk. So this podcast isn't going to give you the answer to what that C-type goal is. And maybe you're going to come in the DMs and be like, Gazzy, can I like back and forth this with you a bit? Maybe I can think bigger. I'm known for making people stretch bigger. In fact, I'm even thinking of my client right now, and just to keep it anonymous, I won't say her name or her brand just to respect her privacy. But when we were going for the C-type goal, like I could see the discomfort in her face of like, eek, oh my God. Like, and she even used the words like, this feels impossible. Like, I don't know about this. And I'm like, good, we're on to something. So if you want to live an extraordinary life, this is the way I want you to be thinking. And if you're not in rooms where women are constantly thinking about these 10x, next level, stretch like C-type goals, whatever that name is, then get in the room. Yes, listening to the podcast is great, but getting a coach, working one-on-one with me, getting me to kind of reflect back and mirror back and help you stretch beyond what you think is possible, that can come in formal coaching, but it could also be, getting entrepreneurial friends, going out to dinner with girls where you could be like, girl, you could do way bigger. If someone tells you an idea, being like, can you lock in on that? So that's been one of the things that's really helped me on this journey of going from B-type goal to C-type goal and extraordinary thinking and manifesting bigger dreams for myself, is truly getting around people who that is their normal. On a Tuesday, they're thinking about what can I achieve? What's that next big goal for myself? So if you don't have that, find your people. If you're in Toronto, come to our events, come network, get on the wait list for the Female Founders Feast, come to an event with Run the World, get in our masterclasses, come to events that we'll be speaking at, because you want to become, let me backtrack. It's like they say you become the people you spend the most time with. And so when I was living in that B-type goal, I looked at the people around me and I'm like, yeah, of course, they also were the B-type goalers. And so to get to that next level identity, I had to start hanging around people who thought that way all the time. So as you know, I love at the end of each episode to give you invitations, or I call them like home play, but stuff to do. Because again, if you're giving your time to listen to this podcast, it better be worth it for you. And the way to make it worth it is to take some inspired action. So I want you to be honest with yourself right now. Whether you're in a B-type goal or in a C-type goal, or you're an entrepreneur that's trying to just set that next level, or you're in your corporate career and you're looking for that next big thing, really sitting with yourself and thinking, what could that next level be for me? This is an exercise I love to do all the time, but it's also because I've just embodied this way of thinking where I'm always thinking in the mindset of not what is realistic, but what would I love? And so everything that you approach, let it be from that lens. Yes, we're talking about C-type goal for business because that's what this podcast is about. But I've seen people manifest their lovers, their dream home, just through thinking in this lens. So that's my invitation for you. Whether you go on a walk and you give yourself 20 minutes to truly think about this, what would I love this year? What would I love this month? What do I desire to bring to life? Or you're the type that needs to sit down and put it pen to paper, really put B-type goal on one side and stretch yourself to think about what's that C-type goal. And as always, I want to hear your takeaways from this episode. So I'd love for you to connect with me on Instagram. I'm at Authentic Gazzy. Send me a DM, send me a voice note. I want to hear it from you. How are you thinking differently after listening to this episode? And maybe you need a little bit of a stretch and a little bit of a, I know you can think bigger than this. Let's think about what that could look like. So if you want some support, if you want to share your takeaway with me, connect with me on Instagram. As always, thank you for being here, and I'll catch you next week. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I know as a CEO that time is your most valuable asset, so let's make it worth it. What's one thing that you're going to implement or embody today? Because listening without action is just entertainment. So DM me your takeaway on Instagram at Authentic Gazzy. I want to hear it, and I promise you I will hold you accountable. And if this episode resonated, share it with a woman in your circle who needs to hear this. And if you haven't already, follow and subscribe so you never miss a Tuesday. I'll see you next week.